May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be always acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. This past Wednesday, a man who grew up in this parish and doesn't worship with us anymore, but is still meaningfully connected to St. Mark's, asked me a question I have never been asked before in almost 27 years of ordained life. He asked me if I believed in the communion of saints and all this apostolic succession stuff. Now, you might think that that's a question that would have come up before, but it hasn't. And I'll admit to you that I was actually caught a bit off guard, because I just take it as a given that that is a part of our faith. And then I looked at the readings for this Sunday, and lo and behold, we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses. Witnesses who knew the fire of Jesus' baptism, who experienced the anguish of houses divided, father against son, mother against daughter. So let us run with perseverance the race that is set before us. I want us to connect with this great cloud of witnesses this morning. So use your imagination just a bit. Imagine your left hand being grasped by someone who passed along the faith of Jesus to you in a particularly meaningful way. And let that person be present to you right here, right now. No matter whether they are living or dead, near or far, imagine that person holding onto your hand. Then look back over that person's shoulder and see the continuous string of hands, 2 millennia long, stretching back in an unbroken line all the way to Jesus. And see Jesus, his right hand clasped to Peter and all the apostles. See Peter, the apostle to the Jews, proclaiming Jesus as Messiah. And see Paul, the apostle to the Gentiles, extending the right hand of fellowship beyond Israel. And remember their conflict, when Peter would not eat with the Gentile Christians, and Paul challenged him publicly. And then see their embrace, the subject of paintings of icons. For centuries now, they have shared a feast day together on the Christian calendar. Now see Matthew, the evangelist, who wrote a gospel for the Jews describing Jesus as the fulfillment of the law, writing, "Until heaven and earth pass away, not one letter, not one stroke of a letter will pass from the law until all is accomplished." And see Paul, the missioner who spread the gospel through Asia Minor and Greece, who proclaimed Christ is the end of the law, teaching that we are justified by grace, the free gift of God, which we accept through faith. Feel inside yourself the tension between Matthew and Paul, between law and grace. A tension that has been present throughout our church's divided history. See Ignatius of Antioch now, traveling off to his martyrdom, confirming the ordering of our church with bishops, priests, and deacons, exhorting us all to the devotion to the Eucharist as the experience of Christ's presence and the unity of our church. He laid the foundation for the institutions that give us life. And see Macrina, the wise and holy monastic who counseled her powerful brothers to defend and inspire the Trinitarian faith. See Augustine, who declared creation good, yet wrestled with its fallenness. These men and women lived in times of theological conflict that was sometimes quite violent. See Benedict, whose gentle and practical rule of life greatly influenced our Book of Common Prayer 1,000 years later. See Hildegard, mystic, poet, composer, dramatist, doctor, scientist, who counseled the powerful and made music essential to worship. See Aquinas, whose vision inspired the grandest systematic theology known to us, a work he called straw, garbage, after having a mystical experience. See Francis, embracing all the earth in the joy of poverty and surrender. See Meister Eckhart, the man from whom God hid nothing, the great mystic who told us, "The eye with which I see God is the same eye with which God sees me." He died under the cloud of a papal charge of heresy, though he is much beloved now. See Dame Julian, who from her tiny solitary cell in Norwich taught sanctuaries of the devoted the centrality of love and the confidence that all things are well. See Thomas Cranmer, whose first Book of Common Prayer so eloquently put the prayers and scriptures of the Church into the hands of every person. And now see William Laud, who maintained the continuity of England's church with the ancient Catholic traditions in the time of radical reformation and change. Both Cranmer and Laud died at the stake, united as Anglicans, one for our Protestant heritage, the other for our Catholic traditions. See William White, the first citizen of Philadelphia, whose service to both the Continental Congress and the General Convention of our church helped create living constitutions for a new nation and a new church. See Absalom Jones, our first black priest, whose prophetic call to freedom and equality still this day seeks its whole fulfillment. See William Reed Huntington, whose leadership forged the first foundations for reunion among churches who had been dividing from each other for almost a millennium. See Evelyn Underhill, whose writing and retreats inspired a tired church to reclaim its depth of worship and prayer. And C.S. Lewis, who communicated a scholar's discipline in words accessible to everyone, children included. See Edmund Browning, who just died last month, a bishop who boldly called our church to a new inclusiveness in a time of cultural upheaval, calling us to be a community in which there are no outcasts. See those you have known, lay and ordained, who have guided this parish with gracious stewardship, servant leadership. For time fails me to tell of all those whose spirit and energy flows down through the centuries into our lives, bequeathing to us a heritage of faith too rich to measure. Each of us has in our lives some particular people who've passed along this heritage to us and brought each of us into this living river of faith. They've taken us by the hand and guided us into the way of meaning and life and love. I particularly remember Harlan and Vona, my father and grandmother, who let me experience such unqualified love that I could have the audacity to imagine a God who loves without bounds. And Bob and Sanford and others, priests who nurtured a sense of call to the vocation that has been so fulfilling to me and a high privilege. Each of these people I have mentioned, each of them mere mortals, just like you and me. And oftentimes their flaws were painfully public. Many suffered disgrace. My grandmother Vona, she struggled with marriage. She was married 7 different times to 6 different men. Most of these people lived in the midst of controversy and conflict. Households divided, union elusive. We are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses. As you reach your hand out to the past, let the power of their testimony come afresh to you. Grasp onto the heritage that is yours. Let yourself be filled with grace. Recognize the challenges that our ancestors faced and the divisions they endured. And remember that we too will face our own fires and western clouds and blowing south winds and scorching heat, as our gospel predicts. Our time is no exception. Our households will divide also. 3 against 2, 2 against 3. Hold on to the past. Hold on to the inspiration that has brought life to you. But at the same time, reach out to the future. For there are hands right now beckoning to us, even this moment. We need to reach out our hands to give these gifts to others, even as we hold on to the gifts we've been given in the past. In so doing, the future of the Spirit, it flows through us. It's not ours to keep, but ours to share and give away, even as it was given to us. We do stand in a great continuum. Feel the empowering closeness of this great cloud of witnesses. Feel it now, and in a few moments at the altar, when you share with them in the heavenly feast. One day, we too will be part of that great cloud. We will be giving our blessing and endowment of faith and strength to the church of the future. So let us also lay aside every weight and the sin that clings so closely. And let us run with perseverance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith, who for the sake of the joy that was set before him endured the cross, disregarding its shame, and has taken his seat at the right hand of the throne of God. The hand of Jesus reaches out to us from the past, through Peter and Paul and all of the others, to grasp us by the hand and connect us with the living spirit of our faith. And our hands reach out into the future to pass along this heritage and grace. A future that extends all the way until the end of time, where Jesus, seated at the right hand of the throne of God, holds in timeless embrace that final hand.